Hey, you fabulous interior design professional. I'm so glad you're here. I think you must be back because you heard part one last week with Nikki Nash. So, this is part two, a continuing conversation about how to tune up your appointment engine. How do you attract the right clients? And then, just as important, how do you convert them from thinking about using you to hiring you? So, in the first part, we talked a little bit about how much this marketing is like dating, right? You want to spark the conversation, you want to attract that person. And now we're getting into the details about how to reel them in. So, we ended part one talking about creating a clear message. And now we're going to fine tune that communication and make sure the client knows precisely what it is we can do to help them. So this is part two. Tune up your appointment engine with Nikki Nash. I'm really glad you're here. And quick announcements from Cheryl, and we'll get right into the show.
Thanks, Kimberly. Well, October is a busy month here at Business of Design. Next week, we have our next BOD live meeting, and I will be taking the lead answering member questions. It's just open coaching, member support. If you're new to Business of Design and have questions about anything happening within your membership, where to find things, what course or program you should be taking next, join us. If you are in the middle of a program and you have questions about clarifying some of the systems that you're learning, I am happy to answer those questions as well. Join me Wednesday, October 16th, 1 p.m. EST. It's a little bit early this month because we are getting set to head to High Point for Business of Design's 20th anniversary celebration, and that is happening on Saturday, October 26th. Of course, we'll be there for Olive Market, but that is the day that we will be celebrating. So we are kicking off that day with 3 seminars in partnership with Daniel House Club. We will be starting our morning 10 a.m. Ignore the budget, specify better products at 4 hands. Join us for that seminar. We will be heading over to Sunpan at 11, talking about growing profitability with your vendors. Are you seeing a theme here? Make money with your vendors. That's what we want you to take away from High Point. And then at noon, we will be heading to Etu Home to talk about how design fees are not enough. So join us for those 3 seminars. Details are on the website. Showroom locations are on the website if you are mapping out. And then start your Sunday morning at Theodore Alexander. In partnership with Daniel House Club and Zena, Kimberley will be hosting a panel discussion on financials and profits. She will also be joined by Business of Design member Heather Ferreras Token. Doors will open between 9 and 9:30, and then the panel kicks off at 10 a.m. If you are planning to attend the panel, please head to our website and click through to reserve your seat. They do need a head count for that event, so we don't want you to miss out, so make sure you do that. Details for all of this, Business of Design's full itinerary for High Point Market is on the site, so make sure that you include us in your own itinerary for Market. We would love to see you there. Thanks so much.
What's the second thing you can do?
The second thing is effectively communicating that. So you have like in your mind, you're like, all right, here's what I'm going to help people with, right? Like, so mine took me a while to get here, but I'm like, I help people get more sales calls. Like at the end of the day, that's what I'm helping you with. Now, there are a ton of micro things that I help people with, right? So, for example, you were like, oh, you know how to create micro content. I'm like, yeah, I could help people create content strategy to create their content, no problem. But the ultimate goal is to get more sales calls. So I tell people, I help you get more sales calls, right? And then the way I communicate that, is in messaging. And so once you're clear on your offer, the next thing is to refine your messaging to really give it a makeover so that you're effectively communicating to people in everything you do, both in your words, verbally, things you write down, and any visuals you have, that's how you can help people.
Okay. And again, that's going to require some experimentation. Like you've got to wordsmith things and shop it out and see what hits and what clicks and all that kind of stuff.
100%. And then the
Okay.
third thing is what I call like anchor positioning. And
Mm.
essentially what that means is being perceived as like the expert or the thought leader or like the person that can help prospects get what they want, like be perceived as that go-to person. And so the reason why I call it anchoring is because I have this mentor who taught me anchoring. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're a genius. Where he's like, he's
Was
had
that,
one,
was it, oh, I'm blanking on his name, in New York, from New York?
no.
No. Who was it? Can we ask who it was?
Yeah, I mean his name's Dan.
Oh, Dan
He's
Sullivan.
no, you
Oh,
would not know. He's not a like a marketing guru type. He's a business investor, and
okay.
he's invested in like 100 businesses
Okay.
and has built some of his own. So that's I'm like people probably won't know him
Okay.
uh, because he's not like writing books like Dan Sullivan or
Right.
guys. But
Blair
the
Enns.
way
That
he
was the guy who talks about positioning all the time. Anchor positioning. Okay. So
yeah.
is there that again, that seems like that third one is something you can't do or be until you tackle the other two things in that category, right? You can't
Mm,
force that, can you? Or do you, is it the kind of thing where you dress for the job you want, you show up as that leader?
yeah, I mean the thing about all of these things is that you're positioning yourself whether you intend to or not. It just might not be the positioning you want, right? Because
Ouch.
I'm just being honest, like people are like, I need to build my brand or create my brand. I'm like, you have a brand. It might be either obscure or it might be not great or it might not be
Mm,
what you want it to be, but you have a brand. Anybody who's ever met you has a perception of you. And
right.
all your brand is like the common perception, right? If I
Mhm.
say Coca-Cola, people will have their own personal belief about the company. They'll probably visualize very specific things. And some of it is by design and intentional, and some of it is based on your own personal experiences.
Right.
So everybody has some sort of positioning in the world, right? Like somebody sees them a certain way. It's just you want to the best of your ability, navigate or like control the narrative, right?
Right.
You
So is
know,
that just a matter of being disciplined about what you're posting and how you're posting and how you're showing up? Like, is that
it's so
what
much
that
bigger than that.
takes? Oh,
It's so
I
much
knew
bigger
you were
than
going
that.
to say that.
It's like the um how do I want to say this? It's the people you associate with, especially
Mm,
publicly online. It's the stages you speak on. It's the things that are interesting about you, right? So a lot of like I'm right now sitting here in this seat speaking as someone who has a marketing agency and knows marketing, but I also invest in businesses. I also, am about to become what is it called? Like an executive producer in a movie, right? Like I'm investing in a movie. So it's like but all of that positions me differently with people. So it's
mhm.
like it's not just the content that you put out, though that is definitely part of it. It's how you show up in the world. And it can change, right? You think about I tend to use celebrities as an example because it's easy, but you think about how Nicole Richie was when she first came out with Paris Hilton and
Mhm.
what she looks like more like later in her career. Or Angelina Jolie, people thought of her as like the rebel tattooed drinking blood or whatever, and now she's like humanitarian, like goes to war torn countries and adopts children and is a UN ambassador and that sort of a thing. So
Right.
you can change people's perception of you, but it's based on all the things that you're doing and how you show up in the world.
Okay, but again, you do have to be strategic and disciplined, right? Because if you're flip-flopping all over the place, you're going to confuse that potential client.
Yeah, and you're going to be seen as a flip-flop confused person. um,
Mhm.
so
I'm assuming
it
that's not good.
no, yeah, not if you want clients, probably
Flip,
not.
flip-flop confused person. That is not the offer we're going for.
Not
Okay,
what you're going for.
so that was the second category then. That's for the person who's got some traction now in socials and organically, but maybe the client hasn't converted to realizing you're the person who can solve their problem. So those are the three things you're going to do to help that potential client go, maybe this person can help me. And it might not just be the interior design services you offer. It might be, for example, I do a lot of traveling. In fact, I do so much traveling. I had to hide how much traveling I did last year because I didn't want my clients to think I'd given up. But I can leverage that too. Like typically a client who reaches out to me says, I know you travel a lot. And how do they know I travel a lot? Because they're creeping on social.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only way they could possibly know how much I travel. So those things will add up as well. Okay. And then the last category was for there's there's not a clear pathway. Once that client has decided, I want to work with Nikki, somehow there isn't a clear pathway to get to Nikki, or what's the next step in our relationship.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just like there's no, like everything that we've talked about before, there isn't a strategy behind it. Like sometimes people are just doing these things. And so it's really how do you go from your leads aren't booking calls to having them book calls, and it's like clockwork, like it's just constantly happening because you have this laser focused strategy that leads, more sales, leads to more sales calls and super aligned clients coming your way. And so really with that, there's, again, because I'm a three girl, and some of it we've talked about at a light touch, but it's more in depth here. But having some sort of, how do I want to say this? I get frustrated because I feel like, no offense to Russell Brunson, but I feel like he bastardized the word funnel. And so now people think a
Right.
funnel is like email sequences and videos. And
Right.
all a funnel is, it's traditional marketing, is taking someone from like awareness to client. Like they're aware
Right.
that you exist all through the different stages so that they become a client, and then ideally a loyal client and an advocate. And so as I mentioned earlier, a lot of things with me are a dating analogy. So I have a just like dating method, which is how you build out that marketing strategy, how you build out that funnel that takes someone from, hey, I didn't know you exist, to, but now I do, to, oh my gosh, I am telling everybody and their mother that they should also work with you because I had such an amazing experience. And so
I'm like looking for this dating analogy. I'm
yeah,
thinking
I'm
I'm
getting
gonna
there. I
call
just
my
need,
daughter right away and let her know, like, well, this is a thing.
oh, yeah, it is. I'm like, this is what you do. If you're single, this will also help you if you get nothing else with your dating life. But you want to think through, okay, you're clear on the person that you're looking for. You want to ask yourself, where are they spending their time, right? So it could be metaphorically specific dating apps. It could be in certain bars or clubs. Maybe they're in a running club or something, something along those lines, right? So you want to say, where are they spending their time? And then choose a place that you're going to also show up in your best light. It should be a place that you like showing up. Sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, my clients are on TikTok, but I hate TikTok. And I'm like, so then where else are they? Is TikTok the only place they're on? Because if they're also on Instagram and you love Instagram, then do Instagram, right?
Right,
Because
right.
you want to show up as your best self. I'm not saying never do TikTok, but maybe to get the momentum going, get started with something that
Yeah.
you be consistent with, right? So you want to ask, where are your clients spending their time? Are they listening to certain podcasts? Are they going to certain events? Are they do they belong to specific associations? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Pinterest? You know what I mean? Like, where are they spending their time? And then you can think of how can you strategically intercept them there in a way that has them go, oh my gosh, I can't wait to work with you, learn from you, etc. Right? So
Interesting.
that's number one. The second is a part of this method is like, okay, they know you exist now, and you've kind of shown up where they are. It's okay, great. Can you capture their attention and ideally get their digits, right? So that could be a guy walking up to you and saying, oh my gosh, I love your smile. Can I buy you a cup of coffee or something, right? Or you metaphorically say, hey, I have this free playbook that walks you through how to get more sales calls. Would you like it? Right? Like, and they go, yes. And then they give you their contact information and you give them the playbook, or they buy you a cup of coffee and you give them your number, right? Like there's some sort of, hey, exchange there, right? And so it's like they know you exist. They're interested, like you've had maybe a little bit of a conversation. They've consumed some of your content, maybe. They're like, oh, this person's interested. You offered them something, they gave you their contact information.
Okay. So as an interior design professional, the offer could be like just riffing on what you did. Give me 15 minutes and I'll tell you what level of interior design service you need and
100%.
how to find it kind of
How to
thing.
find it, right? If you
Yeah.
know if you already know that, and other things, you have to know your audience really well. If you know that they're constantly on Pinterest making boards for specific things, then you might want to also be having blog posts or articles that are posted on Pinterest that they're going to click on because it reminds them of something, and they keep going to your site and they're like, who is this person? Gets me, right? Like there's so many options.
Yeah.
But it's like, you want to offer them something in exchange for a way to contact them. And then that leads you to the first date, right? So what's
Right.
that first date? That first date could be that 15-minute conversation. That first date could be them reading a blog post. That first date could be, you know, them getting a free video that kind of walks them through how to think of, like, you know, maybe you created your own mini interior design show where you like walk through how you think through people designing people's homes, and you record it, and then you're like letting people watch these webisodes and they're going, oh my gosh, I love what you do. I need to hire this person because I know I'm not going to do it myself. Right. So there's so many creative ideas. It's just thinking about what's going to work for your business. And that's worth trying, right? Because it's all a science experiment anyway. And so you take them on that first date, and then depending on how long it takes you to convert someone, you might have a couple of additional dates, right? Like maybe that first 15-minute call just got them, like I do a two-step sales conversation, essentially. So the 15 minutes, here's what you need to do to increase your sales call bookings, for example, right? And then if at the end, it's like, would you like to discuss how I can help you specifically do this, right? If they're looking for support versus just kind of going off and doing on their own, I'll schedule a separate conversation, right? Okay, you just had this 15-minute conversation with me. You now know what type of interior design you need. Would you like to have a longer conversation about how I can help you with this? Or maybe I'm going to do a, you know, complimentary or for $97, not really, don't do this. I just made up a number. Like, here's I'll do a rendering of what I think high level things could look like. And then we could work together and kind of go from there. Right. Like it kind of depends, but it's going, okay, we're going on these dates. I'm helping you. The whole point is to help the other person get everything they need to know, like believe, feel, like all of the things to have them be able to say yes to working with you.
Okay.
That's the point of dating is getting to know someone to decide if, as my grandmother used to say, piss or get off the pot, or as Beyonce says or sings, if you like it, then you better put a ring on it, right? Like it's getting people to that point of, are we going to commit or are we not going to commit? And, you know, what do we need to know to make that decision?
We want to get to that point as quickly as possible, so we're not wasting time, but that's the tighter your messaging gets, I think the faster you can get there. So those are the first two things, right? You're going to work on that funnel awareness and, you know, transforming that person from somebody who's mildly interested to really interested. Then you're going to try to get that first date. And then is this a situation like the other two where the third thing is not the first thing you should do?
No, honestly, we were still on the first thing. We were just like, it's just your market, it's just the funnel. It's literally taking some. So like there's multiple stages. It's like getting them to know you exist, getting them to give you their contact information, going on that first date, and then getting them to a sales call. And honestly, it's just building out your hypothesis for it. So it's not even, you're not even really doing anything. Step one is to come up with your hypothesis, right?
Right. Okay. Oh, good. Okay. This is meaty. Hey, designers, just popping in to remind you of the wonders of Daniel House Club. DHC simplifies your design business, offering everything you need in one place. No more wasting time managing orders. They've got that covered, so you can concentrate on creating beautiful spaces. Plus, they offer some of the best trade pricing on top brands like Four Hands, Curry & Co., and Hudson Valley Lighting with flat rate shipping. To join, visit danielhouse.club and use the promo code BOD2024, all caps, for 50% off your first year of their Pro Plus membership. And for you longtime members of DHC, they want to reward you for your loyalty. Use the code HighPoint2024 at checkout to receive 10% off the value of your next order. DHC is also super excited to celebrate BOD's 20th anniversary with us this fall at High Point Market. They will be sponsoring our seminar series on Saturday, October 26th, in partnership with some of their top vendor showrooms, including Four Hands, where mimosas will be on tap. Join Daniel House Club now and experience how easy managing your design business can be.
The second step is what I call the MAD scientist framework. And MAD is an acronym. So it's MAAD. And what that stands for is make a plan, which is what you just did with Just Like Dating. So check, right? Then it's to activate the plan. So you actually have to put your plan into action, whatever you decided to do. Like I'm a guest on a podcast. I invite people to download a free guide. With the free guide, I invite them to a 15-minute call. If the 15-minute call goes well, they get on a longer call and then they become a client, right? Like that could be the hypothesis. So I put that in action, right? So I make the plan, I put it in action. The second A is to adjust the plan based on the results. So this is where, like, when we talk about testing, it's in everything.
Oh, yeah.
D is do it all over again, right? So like now that you've adjusted the plan, now go put that new plan into action. And then you just kind of cycle back through the last two steps over and over again, where you do things, you adjust the plan, you do it again, you adjust the plan, then do it again. Because most strategies, it's like to hit a target, it usually can take 7 times before you really hit it, right? Mm-hmm. So like if the goal is $1 million, maybe your first try, you got $50,000, right? The second try, you got $100,000. Your third try, learning curve, maybe you got to $300,000. So like you're growing, but you maybe didn't hit it. And so it's not change the target. Again, it's keep revising and making tweaks. Like some people throw the baby out with the bathwater and they're like, I'm not doing any of this. I'm going to start all over. It's not that. How do I make informed tweaks based on the results that I just got from that first test?
Yeah, that is the best thing ever. You're not going to change the target. You're going to change the strategy to get to the target.
100%, right?
Because I think a lot of people change the target
all the time. It's like, if you think about it, if I'm like, I want to go to my parents' house, right? GPS may change the route while I'm going there because traffic comes up or something happens, but I don't go, you know what? I'm just not going to visit my parents anymore.
Right.
Like what? No, I'm sorry. I'm not coming home for Christmas anymore because it just was too hard.
Yeah.
Like, no, coming home for Christmas. I may just now need to take trains, planes, and automobiles instead of just driving. Right. So it's you adjust the strategy.
That's so good. I love that visual too. That's just so good. Okay. So mad scientists.
Yes.
Make a plan, activate the plan, adjust the plan, and do it all over again. And keep doing it. Like I said, you don't get to the finish line, right? You don't finally come up with a strategy and go, this is going to work for the rest of my life. I never have to think about this again. You've got to continually stay in the game because life changes, the mood changes, the zeitgeist changes.
Yeah. We as people change. Like things are going to change. So it's just getting into a routine and a systematic approach to doing that. Okay. And then the third final thing in this section is traffic drivers. It's now that you have a funnel, like you're Just Like Dating funnel, you've tested and optimized it. Now you've got something that seems to be working. It's going back to, okay, now how do I get more people there? Right. And again, it's kind of like what we talked about initially, where instead of just trying to grow your audience and get more people to know you exist with your content or with partnerships or with paid ads, you're sending them to a specific funnel. You're not going, hey, just follow me online. It's you're focused and you're like, hey, sign up for this 15-minute call. Hey, watch this first training or watch this episode or like, whatever it is.
And you do have to be aware that it seems to me like if you're constantly selling, if you're always selling, that's a turnoff to the people who are following you. So you're constantly going back to the beginning and kind of introducing yourself. Oh, really? Tell me. I like that.
You always be selling. I don't think you should always be selling the same thing. And I think people get selling wrong, right? Like in their minds. I'm constantly selling stuff. So for example, all roads lead to, at some way, shape, or form, ideally, working with me.
Right.
Not everybody gets there. Not everybody takes all roads, but strategically all roads get there. So I may go, hey guys, here's this free guide. Okay. Like they get on my email list. Eventually I'm going to invite them to work with me. Hey guys, here's this free 15-minute call. They may get on the call. Eventually, ideally, they'd work with me. Hey guys, listen to my podcast. They listen to my podcast. I'm going to talk about working with me. So I'm constantly selling something. I constantly have a call to action. The call, it's just, am I doing a direct sale or an indirect sale?
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
Buy my book. The book gets people on my email list, which will eventually, hey, you want to work with me or not? So it's like, I think sometimes people are, to your point, it's very common. That's why I'm like, so like, I'm disagreeing because
No, it's good.
such a common thing. And I was there and I'm like, it's not that, yes, I agree. Like, don't always be like, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing. That's annoying. But all roads should lead to buying your thing. And I think when people think about it a little bit differently, it's like, oh, okay, like, let's go for a cup of coffee and get to know each other. And then let's talk. And then this is back to dating and the analogy. And if we're a good fit, like, oh, we're going to go on a date. But so all roads would ideally lead to date and maybe finding your person, but you got to start with like the first step and know that that's where you're trying to get to. And that's where you're taking everybody.
Oh, so good. Nikki Nash, I just have this feeling that we could do 400 podcasts and you'd still have something cool to teach us.
Yeah, probably. I taught as a side hustle while I was head of marketing at a tech startup. And after I started my own business, I taught marketing to entrepreneurs. And I did like 10-week long classes, workshops, boot camps. And I'm like, I could do this all day. I love it.
I love, you can tell, like you can just feel it. And it's a really energizing talking to you, which I love. We like to end every episode with something we call design intervention, which is just a great piece of advice you want to leave the listeners with.
Yes. So this is literally something my mentor, Dan, who he's really my mentor for the next phase of what I'm creating for my life. And what I mean by that is for so long, and this is where the advice comes in, for so long, I was focused on increasing my revenue, like increase my revenue, make more money, get more clients. And what I realized is that at some point, like you're going to have to scale to a point where it's not going to lead you to where I thought I wanted to go. Right. And so the big tip is that there's a difference between making money and creating wealth and creating like generational wealth. If you want to pass it down to, your kids or impact future generations. And the biggest difference is that making money is about revenue and creating generational wealth is about perceived value. And like, when I really got this, my mind blew, right? Like I think about my parents' house. My parents paid, let's say I'm making this up, but let's say they paid $350,000 for the house, like 40 years ago or something like that. That house is now worth over $1 million. So now they're millionaires, right? Yeah. Just based off of that one asset that's paid off. That's perceived value. It's not like it's now perceived to be worth more than it was before. But if they just tried to create revenue to get there, it would take so much effort. It's all like cash is constantly devaluing based on inflation. Like it's a whole different game. And so that's the big thing that I would just share with people is to think about where you're trying to go. Because the big thing for me is I actually scaled back my business because I realized I didn't need to create this behemoth of a business to create the level of impact I wanted to make in the world. Right. And it could actually create the level of impact I wanted to create in the world by scaling back my business and using revenue to create wealth so that I can then do some really cool, amazing things in the world as well, like philanthropic things that I've always been really into.
That's so beautiful. And that completely aligns with the business of design and our evolution, what's happened to us in 20 years. I used to talk about just like, for goodness sakes, charge for the consultation. Like that was our initial messaging. And now it's like, whoa, wait a minute. You need to grow generational wealth. You need to have independent wealth so you can do what you want. Because otherwise, what's it all for? What's it 100%. All for?
Yeah. My game is now, how do I make the same amount of money passively? Mm-hmm. Literally, like that's all I'm focused on right now is like, all right, what's an opportunity where I could do nothing really at this point and money's coming in.
And of course, when you're a serial entrepreneur, like I think you might be, you really don't want to do nothing. You just don't want to be tied to the grind. Yeah, we don't want you tied to the grind.
Like I was in a really bad car accident a couple of years ago and it took me out of the game for a bit. And I was like, if anything happens to me, I don't want to be like, well, I'm not working, so I'm poor. Like I want the ability to not have to work, even though I'm probably still going to work.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. Nikki, it was so amazing talking to you. Lots of information in the show notes. And anyway, hopefully it's just the first time we meet, not the last. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're so welcome.